Do you know who Dennis Lynn says could be the biggest key to the Padres' hopes in 2025? One player.
I'm going to go with Xander Bogaerts.
Did you read this?
I didn't.
Did you see it?
No.
It's Xander Bogaerts.
I didn't see it or read it. No.
I know. Okay, then good call. Because anytime I say one player, I'm always thinking like, man, he goes, the team goes. But it is true. The guy that they're paying so much money to that just has to play better than he has played. He doesn't have to be their best player or like the best version of himself, but you cannot be a black hole, which at times he has been. I think that's a little harsh, but it hasn't been great. I think that's completely fair. In fact, it's been bad at times over the 2 years. So Xander with his $280 million contract in year 3 of an 11-year deal has to be better. That's like a very simple statement. He has to be better in year 3 because I'm not counting on him in year 11. So if he's not better now, when's he going to be better? Never?
It is such a big key to this season that if you tell me right now Xander Bogaerts put together an all-star type of year, I would say the odds of the Padres having a good season are pretty high. Now, there are a lot of things going to happen.
No, but you're right.
But you get a good season from Xander, that kind of calms everything else down. And you can't then you feel comfortable having Xander in the middle of your lineup. If Xander doesn't put together a good season, then where are you putting Xander? You put him in the middle of your lineup again, well, then it's like you're going to probably get the same results. You know, doing the same thing and expecting different results all the time isn't a great strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way Xander in the middle of that lineup works is if he goes back to his all-star form from his Boston days.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, what's interesting here, I haven't seen this sound. I'm sure it exists somewhere. Bogarts talking about the switch last year. Right, how we went from short to second. And he said in there, like, you know what, I won't comment on that because what's done is done.
But we know he didn't like it.
Right. But he went on to say, would it have been better if you had known earlier? I mean, I think with anything, if you had known earlier, it would have been better. You know, you can prepare better. You can train yourself differently. And I had no idea of that at all the whole offseason. But yeah, it's all over. That's interesting. To me, it's actually really interesting. Like, again, he's not throwing anyone under the bus. In fact, it was a sign of like, maybe he is. I didn't see how he said it. I don't think that's overly harsh what he's saying there. Although he's being,
it kind of feels there's a little bit of a conflicting viewpoints on this. Because when Mike Schilt was asked about his conversation with Xander, he mentions how it was pretty early in the offseason. And it doesn't feel like Xander has the same kind of view of that going down that way.
Interesting. You're saying last offseason, Schilte looked at it like Bogarts was aware earlier than the start of spring training when they announced it?
Oh, he said, absolutely. We had a conversation in the offseason about you moving to second, yet Xander doesn't he make it seem like he got
to spring training and they made the decision.
Right. So that's two different, those are conflicting views right there.
Yeah, well, and then there's this quote from Preller. Part of last year was on me, said Preller, who weighed trade offers for Kim before hanging on to the blah, 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 Kim. We were paring down some payroll, but you didn't want to ever tell a player and then have to pivot and change message at a later point in time. So Xander was awesome about everything last year. And then it says here, Schilt echoed that sentiment. That was really, and I take responsibility for it. This is Schilt, similar to the conversation trying to find out what the roster looked like. There's always some moving pieces to that. I thought he handled it very, very well. He's a complete pro's pro.
Yeah. Schilt mentioned they spoke in the offseason. Xander made it seem like the second he got to spring training, they're like, hey, you're a second baseman now. And whatever. It is what it is. And he's back at short. So go out and put together. You have no excuses anymore. That's what I'm going with right now. That's my take. Xander, you got no excuses.
You're saying that's all now in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
You're back at this position that you want to be at.
Right.
You've had from what we can tell and what you've said, a healthy offseason. Okay. There's no excuses for you now. And I know Padres fans want nothing more than to see you perform because you do have a great attitude and a great personality. And I love hearing Xander talk to the media after games. I love hearing Xander just speak. because he's so honest and open about things. But those things aren't going to like make the fans like you if you don't perform.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that. At the end of the day, I mean, this guy's a 2-time champion, and you got to be able to deal with the adversity that comes with signing a $280 million deal. And even if everything isn't perfect and it's not the position you thought you'd play or the manager you thought you'd be, you just have to put it all to the side and just produce. He's had months where he's been fine, but on the whole, he hasn't produced. He's been hurt at times. He has no power here. His power has been zapped. So I don't know what to say other than if you don't produce in year 3, it's going to be looked at as just a horrific deal. Like I already think it's looked at as a very bad deal, right? We can all agree.
Yeah.
If you don't produce in year 3, is there any recovery from it? Like, oh, year 4 is the year. No. Like if you haven't done it in the first 3 years, I don't trust you're doing it in year 4. I just don't.
Is there his 2023 season? Is there a more like fake season than this one?
So that was 2 years ago. Yeah. Good April, good September.
He had a 4.4 WAR that year.
Yeah. I don't remember it like that.
He hit 285 with a 790 OPS. Yet he only drove in 58.
Batting like 5th.
Exactly.
Yeah.
31 doubles and 19 home runs in 155 games played. If you just look at that season on face here and be like, oh, it's pretty decent, like low RBI total, but all in all, he had 30 plus doubles. He had, 19 home runs. He had a 790 OPS, like 4.4 WAR, played 155 games. Not bad. I'm telling you, I watched every game that season of Xander Bogaerts. He was awful. I'm sorry. He was really good in the beginning, and he was really good in garbage time late when nothing mattered.
Yeah, he was a very average player in an average team.
In the important parts of the season, in the big chunk of it, he was awful. So I don't want to hear anything from anybody saying that Xander had a good 2023. He didn't. I'm sorry. And he had a worse 2024. This year is a year that Xander has to produce. He just has to. And you can't go out there and hit in the middle of the lineup and drive in 58 runs. You gotta up that to closer to 85 to 90 if you're going to be hitting 5th or 6th in this lineup.
Right. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think Xander by and large has said the right things, but at the end of the day, you got to produce, right? Like, I think he has said, like, I'm looking at this chat and we could talk about the other side.
Yeah.
This makes no sense. So Leah, who's a loyal viewer, says Xander's dealing with it, John, with class. Why are you implying that he hasn't? Well, first of all, I'm not.
We just said that he's great with the media. We love hearing him speak, and he's a very interesting, thoughtful person.
Yeah, so that's not at all what I said. What I said is, I don't care if he goes into the clubhouse and starts kicking over cameras if he hits 351.
Yeah, nobody cares.
I mean, or he hits 36 home runs.
Right.
But the truth is, actually, when the opposite occurs, also nobody cares. He could be the most glowing personality in the history of the world in a clubhouse. You got to produce when you make $280 million. And I think it's completely fair. Like, we're getting people telling us, why are you being critical of Xander Bogaerts? Because he hasn't lived up to the contract. Not for no other. Why? Because you're paying him $280 million and heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm not critical of Mike Brousseau because there's no criticism that's warranted.
Right.
I don't even know who he is.
Yeah. And that's what baseball is missing, is they're missing. And I'm not saying that I like it per se. And now we do it here in San Diego, but from on a national level, the talking heads, they just don't, there's nothing interesting to them about baseball. There's not. And for us, we take the conversation and we try to just give it to you as blunt as possible. We're not going to spend segments on here diving deep into spin rates. Other shows will do that, but not this one. And I just think that's just like the worst radio possible, is to dive into all the sabermetric numbers and all the numbers that are just, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. Now, it's maybe some people's thing, but I would bet you the majority of people, it goes over their head.
And I think, if anything, just using Xander as an example, and it's not solely about Xander Bogaerts. It's not. They need more than Xander Bogaerts to be good. And he alone not being good isn't the reason why the team won't be good, right? It's not as simplistic as that. But I would say, if anything, maybe not you and I specifically, but certainly those that cover the Padres have gone easy on Xander. And I would even argue me and you. I mean, You could argue that it could be more of a focal point. We don't obsess over it. We haven't spent the entire offseason breaking down how Xander has to be better. It'll come up occasionally because it's a truthful statement. Because he has to be better, he would say the same thing. Now, has he been fully healthy? No. But nobody, like we said earlier with the NFL, nobody's really going to care. If you're playing, nobody cares if you're dealing with a wrist or a back or a shoulder. It's just part of it, especially when you're a high-profile athlete, especially when you're a champion, and especially when you're on a $280 million deal.
Yeah, there's one thing that I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, man, you know what? I hope he does better, but if he doesn't, he's still a Padre, so we'll love him anyway.
Right.
The dude's getting paid $7 million a year to play baseball. And it's our job to let you know if he's not living up to that contract or not.
Yeah, like imagine the opposite. Imagine if we came on all offseason. I'm betting on Xander. I'm gonna I don't think any of the criticism is warranted. I think the fan base has been, first of all, the fan base hasn't been unfair. They've been completely reasonable.
Yeah.
He's not getting booed every night. No. Is he?
No.
I mean, this isn't Philadelphia and it's to a credit. Like the people are showing out. They want him to perform. They want him to perform. I prefer he performs. He'd prefer he performs. But if he doesn't perform, I will say this definitively. If the season ends and Xander has another disappointing season, it's the worst contract in the history of the organization.
Yeah, the one show in this town that will definitely tell it like it is and be critical of a player that's getting paid as much money as Xander is if they don't perform is this one.
Yeah, go prove us wrong. I have no problem with it. If he's an all-star and finishes 5th in MVP voting and hits 33 home runs and guides them to the NLCS or further, thank you.
Because guess what? Like you said, if he does do all those things, guess what show will also
We'll be right here saying he redeemed himself.
It will be this one.
He redeemed himself completely.
We can go both ways here. Right. A lot of people might think that this show, you guys just have a critical, aspect to it, lens to you. No, we actually tell you how it is when it's going on. When Manny's not performing, guess what? You're going to hear about it. But when he was performing last year, the last 2 months of the season, what did we do? All we did was praise Manny Machado. It's just funny what some people want to hear sometimes.
And this is it for me. Like after 2025, it's not personal. I think he's been brilliant with the media. We never bring up anything personal. After 2025, it's over. If this deal does not work in 2025, if he underperforms in 2025, that's now on the organization. AJ, go figure out how to get out from that thing. How do you even pivot or posture?
Yeah, it would behoove Xander Bogaerts to hit and to perform.
And for the team to be good.
And I don't think anybody's asking him to put up an all-star season, but at least go out there and not look lost at the plate like you did a lot of times the last 2 years. I mean, there were, how many times did Xander go to the plate? And it was just like, I'm back out.
I know.